Great to be here. Hi, good evening. My name is Shireen Yates. I'm the founder and CEO of 6SensorLabs. So we're building devices that help people better understand what's in their food. And we're starting with a portable device that you can take with you at the dinner table, at mealtime, bust it out, and quickly take a sample of food to know exactly what's in it, starting with gluten, and then extending into peanut and dairy and all major food allergens. So just a little bit of context before we dig into this presentation. I myself found out I had a bunch of food allergies and sensitivities in college. I have a sales and marketing background. This is my first venture, and definitely first hardware venture. And we also decided to throw a little chemistry in there as well. It's a chemistry-based sensor. So little company background, founded in 2013 at MIT. We have about 15 full-time engineers, mostly engineers based out of San Francisco, and we're planning on launching the product this year. So we're on track to launch by mid-2016. Our product is also direct-to-consumer, and it's called Nima. Quick overview on how it exactly works, and we can run some samples after if anyone's dying to test a sample of food for gluten. Take a sample of food, you put it in a disposable one-time use capsule, and then put that capsule in a sensor. And then in a few minutes, you'll know yes or no whether or not that sample contained parts per million of the protein that you're looking for. So what's actually happening in the device is basically a whole lab process that typically takes 8 to 10 steps, and we've automated that. So you can carry around a lab test, and it meters mixes the fluid, the mixture, meters a specific amount of that mixture to a test strip in the consumable, and then the sensor basically picks up whether or not the protein was detected. So a lot of moving parts, a lot of dependencies, some complexity, and from day one, I had this idea of empowering people to test their food with this type of device. But what I want to stand here today and talk about is how you can get really valuable feedback before you even have a product. Because starting with this idea, I knew it was going to take some capital, a big team, and likely years to get to a point where we can get our final product out there and start getting user feedback. But all along the way, we figured out how to hack not only ways to prototype the product itself, but also the environment in which the product exists. So from Nora's presentation, I'm really going to be living in stage 1 and stage 2, or phase 1 and phase 2 of really understanding your user. And I hope wherever you are in thinking about either starting a company or you guys work on hardware or you're interested in hardware, I hope that you can walk away with some really tangible tips on how to vet your potential consumers and how to really test that product market fit before you have a product. So I'm going to talk about vetting the market. I'm going to talk about vetting price points, the ecosystem in which our product, and prototyping the ecosystem in which our product lives in. And then finally, how to prototype some of those product features before you even have a product. So start off with our assumptions about the world. People are stressed with food allergies when they eat out and they get sick. They get sick pretty often. They're willing to test their food, and they're willing to pay to test their food, and they're going to do it frequently. Those are the core assumptions we started off with. And I will caveat this by saying it is very specific to 6SensorLabs, but again, hopefully some of these tactics and strategies will be relevant to all of you. So first thing we did, this is back in 2013 at MIT. We took a Google form, 12 questions. I highlighted 6 here that really get to addressing those core assumptions, which was how often do you get sick, when you eat out? How often are you eating out? We focused on the gluten market. We actually did this for all allergens, but I'm highlighting responses for gluten. And then we posted it on a Facebook ad campaign. So audience targeted to people who are avoiding gluten, got about 600 responses. And these were the responses. So people ate out 4 times a week. They got sick about 1 out of 3 times they were eating out. They said 80% said, yes, if I could test my food, oh my gosh, I would do it. And then we found that people would want to test 3 times a week on average. This is based on that initial finding. And finally, people would pay $0 to $2,000 per test. Helpful. And then also in terms of attributes that were most important, portability, sensitivity, accuracy, speed, and price. So we took that and we thought, all right, we want to double click on a price. Again, we're in prototyping mode, just figuring out what are the constraints we're living in here. And we created a landing page where we put a concept of what this product would look like, a disposable unit, a sensor, and we had a purchase button. And what we did is we tested multiple price points on not only the sensor, but also the disposable. We used a great tool called Unbounce that allows anyone who has no background in this to quickly set up a multivariate campaign if you want to test value proposition or different price points. And we tested 25 price points, 5 on the sensor, 5 on the disposable, and this really helped us to start build that demand curve for not only the sensor, the disposable, and then bundling of those prices, and understand exactly, how our consumers are thinking about price. And also a quick tip is to definitely follow up on a more in-depth analysis on price point. And this I think is relevant whether you're doing direct-to-consumer or even B2B. But price is really, really important, I think often overlooked and sort of tacked on at the end. So we did a lot of research on pricing. Then we paused and we said, all right, we understand there's a pain point. We understand that people are open to this idea, but we really wanted to get to know people in their environment. So again, I went to my favorite tool, Facebook. I basically, it was almost like gluten-free online dating. I said, hey, I'll take you out for lunch. I targeted gluten-free consumers in San Francisco. 10 people responded and said, sure, and went out to lunch with them and really just asked these open-ended questions using the framework to aggregate the data of what did they say, what did they do, what did they think, and how did they feel, and really tried to be very open-ended about this, and ask questions of, watch them how they ordered their food. Did they talk to the wait staff? And ask them also questions about their lifestyle. This is just an example of the raw notes of one of these interactions with the users. So you can see some things that really pop out here is this tension about the eating experience, that this stress, this also some embarrassment of, I don't want to be that person, I don't want to make a big deal. And also, this openness of using a product like what we were introducing, but also there was this tension of, you're drawing attention to yourself by testing your food at the table, so how do you reconcile that? And these are all inputs into our product development thinking, all inputs into how we're thinking about our brand and our messaging. I should say too, just as a side note, you never know who you're going to meet. Actually, my co-founder, Scott, took this particular feedback session with this particular gluten-free consumer who responded randomly on our Facebook survey and is now totally fell in love with her. So you just never know who you're going to meet. So then, aside from really understanding a user in their own context, you can also prototype the ecosystem in which your product lives. And what that meant for us was really turning our very sexy conference room in our office into a 4-star restaurant. So we had a dining table, we lit some candles, and then we had a menu. And we asked people, if you could test anything on this menu, what would you test? And had them circle and highlight and start to get a sense that, hey, this product, it really needs to handle both solids and liquids. People are concerned about sauces, they're concerned about marinades, they're concerned about even the gluten-free bread that they're ordering that they're not sure is gluten-free. So that was really important as we're thinking about our product. So we have some good data in terms of the ecosystem, our users, the pain points, the price points. So now it's time to shift into building this damn thing. And so what we did is we started off with clay models. I carried around that very, very attractive clay model for a month in my pocket, took out the disposable at the table, definitely a conversation starter in case you ever need a little inspiration. Also had foam models, different shapes, tested it with users, asked them to carry it around, the look and feel, and we narrowed it down to 2 shapes that people really like, the triangle and also the oval. Then we worked with an amazing industrial design firm. The firm that we worked with is called Montauk, to work on concepts and really bringing these models to life. And we put them, again, in the hands of users. Now, one thing to note about our particular product is it's chemistry-based, as I mentioned, and in order for it to run properly, it has to be standing up. And so what we observed when we put this product in the hands of people was, how do they place it on the table? And we found that most people place the triangle correctly on standing up, whereas a lot of people just flip the oval-shaped prototype on its side. And that led us to thinking, okay, triangle is good, and people like it, so that's what we're going to go forward with. Now, still, we're doing a lot of development work in parallel, but always testing as we're getting closer and closer to that final product. And part of that testing, too, was to test different functions of the product, such as how to sample food into the product. Our initial assumption was that people would want to use a spoon or something. You know, they wouldn't want to use their hand. And it wasn't true. I mean, we went to a gluten-free restaurant. I asked the restaurant owner if we could come in at a slow time and set up a table, and actually had samples there, and I had $10 gift cards and asked people in line waiting for their food $10 for 10 minutes of your time to actually work with these prototypes and see how would they put food in here, how hard is it for them to turn the disposable, and that really helped us inform that, you know, people they want to use their hands, and that made our job a lot easier. So finally, you know, we're starting to get the product it's coming to life in terms of the shape. We're understanding how it fits into the world of our users. And now we wanted to ship those non-functional prototypes to our users all around the country. So we selected 10 gluten-free consumers, all various ages and demographics, and gave them these prototypes and asked them to put stickers on everything they would want to test for 2 weeks. And really got this valuable feedback that NEMA, even in this non-functional form, brought a lot of security, peace of mind, just the value proposition that it was introducing. So it was powerful and very valuable. I have to say I was skeptical, but it was incredibly valuable. So we have the look of the product, we have a sense of how people are using it, where they're going to be using it. And finally, we decided to culminate this in actually going to gluten-free trade shows around the country. And this is, again, a pre-functional product, but we have an idea of what this thing's going to look like, and we're starting to build the brand around it. And so we went to these trade shows, and these trade shows are pretty much the happiest place on earth, because typically people who can't eat anything can suddenly eat everything in the room. So if you're ever down and see a gluten-free trade show in your city, I highly recommend going, whether or not you have a gluten allergy. And for this feedback, it was so valuable because you know, you're one-on-one with thousands of people who are coming by your booth and introducing the concept, introducing the value proposition. And we hacked a way to even see what value proposition or what messaging is really resonating with this group. So you can see these buttons here, and I kind of zoomed in on them. We have different messaging on those buttons. Don't wheat me. GFF is my BFF. And the most radical one, which is gluten-free, good poop for me, which was one of the most popular buttons. So it goes back to just how do you hack a way to really get feedback in everything you do and in every environment you're in. And you can do it way before you have a product. The testing never stops. This is the most exciting time of the company because we are out in the wild with a functional product, which is amazing. And we have tons of users that are using NEMA every day, testing their food, also sharing what they tested, and recording what they tested, building that whole internet of food, map of food that we're really excited to bring to the market. And one thing I did fail to mention about NEMA is that it's Bluetooth enabled, and so you can share your test results with a whole a community of people who have similar dietary restrictions. So in summary, I think it's really important to understand that need, even before it's doable. Just understand what is that pain point and try to quantify it. I mean, there's so many different ways that you can go about hacking this, and there are a lot of tools that are accessible to you to do it really free or very cheaply. And then finally, we all talk about rapid prototyping, and I think we think about it as rapid prototyping our actual products. But just as importantly, it's super important to prototype the context in which your product's going to live. So I hope that you guys walked away with some inspiration around getting great feedback, no matter what stage you're at or how you're thinking about a hardware product. And finally, if you know anyone who has a gluten allergy or sensitivity, tell them to pre-order at nemasensor.com. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. That was awesome. Tell us a little bit more about the community and I guess data aspect of this. So you're gonna have a live database of restaurants and what they need
Exactly, restaurant dishes, even packaged food. That was actually one surprising thing from our beta testing, that people wanted to test packaged food almost as much as they wanted to test restaurant food. So packaged food that might not be clearly labeled, or they thought they got sick from before. So we want to build an inventory of both, starting with restaurant dishes. But imagine you can go out to eat and you have this NEMA certification. It goes beyond just what the menu item is or what the product label is. It's actually verified, tested at the part per million level for what you're trying to avoid.
Very cool. Thank you.
I have a question. Can you adjust the level of children? Some is much severe than for adults.
It's a great question. So the question, if you guys didn't hear, was if you can adjust the sensitivity level. And yes, the answer is yes. And we can actually be semi-quantitative, and we can say, okay, at 20 ppm, less than 20 ppm, then greater 20 ppm eventually. But right now we decided to just go binary because users didn't even know what levels they were reacting to. But I think there's a real opportunity to help people exactly understand what levels trigger a response, especially children. Exactly, exactly. How much can be done?
How many repeat tests can be done?
So one disposable per, we call it per meal, because you can put multiple samples on your plate in the disposable pod. And then once you run it, you run the chemistry and it's done. So it's basically a one-time use.
So if you've got like 3 different types of food on your plate.
Yes. You could, exactly.
And how much is the test run?
How much is it retailing for? $249 for the sensor, and then $399 per disposable pod. Thank you.
Hi. Do you think there are a B2B model for restaurants? I mean, how much money would this could identify equal, how much money would support the state?
We've thought a lot about the B2B model, and it's definitely on our product roadmap. We're actually doing some partnerships with restaurants right now in the Bay Area to do that NEMA certification, testing everything on their menu offering. It's a great question.
How do you decide where the consumer as opposed to the doctor or insurance?
When we did that initial market research, we actually started with food manufacturers and restaurants, and pain point just didn't seem, they had solutions to test their food, or they didn't think it was important. But then when we shifted over to consumers, the pain point was really, really high, and there was this willingness to, oh my gosh, get that thing in my hand. So that's what we started with. All right, if we're going to dedicate our lives to this, it's got to be for a really strong pain point. Now, with that said, I think there's amazing opportunity to leverage the medical community to distribute this product at that point of diagnosis or point of care. We actually, one of the pre-order purchases was covered by a flexible spend account. So I think there's opportunity there. We haven't spent a lot of time looking into it. I don't think I ever told you guys. It takes about 2 minutes. The question was, how much time does the whole thing take? And to put that into context, the existing kits on the market that we could test your food for allergens take between 10 and 20 minutes. So we got it down to 2.
One last question here.
So, do you score any kind of non-clinical tests? Do you do the microphone, or some kind of
spectroscopy? Yeah, so the question was, did you explore any alternative test that's non-chemical? And the answer is yes, but in order to get to that part per million limit of detection that you need for people who have a really strong response, you need chemistry today. I don't know about tomorrow, but today, yes. Thank you. Thank you.